Welcome into the first episode of the Inverted Microphone Podcast. I'm Rees, Goodall, joined by my fellow ASU Walter Cronkite School of Journalism students in Dworaczyk and Joao, Lara, as we are going to talk about the latest news from world football, mainly the Premier League. It's been a jam-packed summer, Club World Cup, Women's Euros going on, but a lot of transfers for the big clubs in the Premier League. We'll get things started off with Arsenal, my club. Best club in North London. They've had a lot of deals been confirmed so far, but one waiting to be confirmed as of now by the club is the Victor Gyökeres deal for £63.5 million, including add-ons. Joao, I know Man United, and I see the flag behind you. They were targeting, actually that's not a Man United flag, is it? But they were targeting Victor Gyökeres, didn't get the deal over the line. What are your thoughts on Gyökeres joining Arsenal?
Well, I mean, I think that at Sporting he was very prolific. He relied on the balls into the box, and I think if Arsenal gives him creation, I think if they give him opportunities, he's gonna be able to finish a lot of these easy chances this season. Something that Arsenal needed last season.
Me personally, I love his fit at Arsenal a whole lot more than I did at United. Obviously, United's been taking a more prim-proven type of approach to this transfer window. So I'd rather us sign somebody who's prim-proven and not Gyökeres, who did it well in Portugal, but I don't know how he could do in the Prim. But I do like the fit at Arsenal.
And that really is the main question surrounding Gyökeres at this point, is how is that transition to the Premier League? And it is something that I am a little skeptical about because so many of his goals last season came in transition, came in these counterattack situations, which last season Arsenal struggled at so much, especially when Bukayo Saka was out injured for 2-3 months, however long it was. That's where Arsenal struggled for so long. They could not move quickly. And I do think that Gyökeres will provide such an elite level to that, but will Arsenal have the pieces around him to really make that work is something we'll just have to wait and see. I know we'll get into it later. They're looking at moves on the left wing, looking at moving Gabriel Jesus as well, which has come out recently, which is interesting to me given that he's out until October. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. Elsewhere, Arsenal have made quite a controversial transfer, varying different opinions on it from various people. Noni Madueke for around £50 million from Chelsea. He's a right winger by trade. There's rumors he could play on the left, which he hasn't done well for Chelsea. But it's just a signing that has so many question marks in my mind.
Now, look, Reese, I know that whenever you initially heard about this transfer, you're a little skeptical. Let's get a little bit more of your thoughts about this Madueke transfer, and what do you think he'll be able to offer for Arsenal?
It's fascinating. I mean, it really is, because I do think Madueke is a player who hasn't reached his potential, but there's still something there. There is a player there that can be a top player that could make the £50 million transfer price worth it. However, I think it is something that it doesn't make sense to buy a backup for $50 million. He's not going to start over Bukayo Saka any day of the week. He isn't a left winger. That just doesn't make sense to me, bringing in him. Now, if you go out and get Eze, you get Rodrigo, you get Rafael Leao, all three of those guys have been named as potential signings for Arsenal to sign as a left winger, then it makes sense. Because then, at the end of the day, you don't care about the individual transfer fees paid. You care about what the end bill is. The bill at the end of the line at the end of the receipt says, then you care and say, oh, okay, maybe we did get good value for him. It is interesting as of now. I am very skeptical, but I still believe there is something there.
For me, I don't get the price. I mean, we talked about it, 50 million for a guy who can't play on the left and is likely going to be a backup to Saka. I don't understand the bill, and I don't understand what he has shown at Chelsea to deserve this bill, personally.
And I get that, but I also think when you're signing Gyökeres for 63.5 with add-ons, that deal is such a steal. You can almost overpay in some of the other deals that you make.
Now, just thinking about it, looking at this Arsenal side and seeing that Kai Havertz isn't going to have to play that striker role because you have Victor Gyökeres, how do you think Arsenal is going to line up, Reese? And how do you think things are going to change from last season? What do you think is going to be different?
I mean, we just have to wait and see. They have played one friendly so far. That was against AC Milan in Singapore. It was a 1-0 win. Martin Zubimendi, the other big signing for Arsenal, played in that game. And you could see moments of just quality from him in possession, where last season when Thomas Partey was playing in that defensive midfielder role, he would opt to play the ball back to either one of his center backs or all the way back to David Raya. Zubimendi was much more progressive in his passing. He didn't drive the ball forward like we've seen from Declan Rice, but he takes the ball and he passes it out wide to Saka. We saw Arsenal create quite a few chances from that game when Zubimendi passes it out wide to the wingers, and if that's something that they can continue to do throughout the Premier League season, they could be prime favorites.
And I totally respect that. And I said it last season too. I said if Arsenal ends up getting a striker in the offseason, I think they're going to be a great contender for the Premier League and the Champions League too. A lot of people, they sort of shrugged it off, but I don't know. I see something different in this side. I see changes and little tweaks that could make overall that difference and finally provide that change that Arsenal fans have been looking for. Now, Rodrigo and Eze, we've mentioned those transfers a little. How possible do we think that these players are to arrive to North London?
Eze is probably the most likely. It seems that because of his links to Arsenal as a kid, he played for the academy, he was dropped and then moved to Crystal Palace. It seems likely that he will return to North London, play for the Gunners. Rodrigo is much less likely, but there is still hope held out from multiple people within Arsenal because Rodrigo is not playing for Real Madrid. If you watch the Club World Cup, really if you watch the tail end of the season for Real Madrid, under both Carlo Ancelotti and Xabi Alonso, Rodrigo was not receiving the playing time that he really would like. However, it seems that he has no desire to leave Real Madrid, even though everyone in the world thinks and knows that he's a much better player than the playing time he is getting. It makes sense for him to leave, and he'd be the better option compared to Eze. But if he's not going to leave, you got to go for Eze if he's right there.
Now, Reese, what are your thoughts on Eze's fit? I mean, personally, I kind of view him as a similar player stylistically to Odegaard. Where do you think he fits in?
I mean, that's a fascinating point you do bring up. It's a transfer that follows a lot of Mikel Arteta's ethos, where he is going to sign players that can fill multiple roles, can play on the left, can play in the middle, can play maybe in the midfield, can play higher up. He's a very versatile player. I think he fits in as that left winger. He is very good when he plays out wide, but because Crystal Palace is a lesser side. No offense to the Palace supporters, but they are not a quality side compared to Arsenal. He's going to need to play in the central spaces for them. In a side like Arsenal, he can occupy the left. And as you mentioned, the similarities to Odegaard, he can fill in for Odegaard or maybe even push Odegaard out of the 11 all entirely. Next, we'll talk about the Manchester United transfers. I know Zach and Joao have quite a few opinions on him because they spent quite a lot of money. They just let go temporarily one of their star boys. And what's next for them? We'll start with the Bryan Mbeumo transfer. It took it feels like 10 years to get that one done. I feel like I was in elementary school when that deal first started. Ends up being done for £65 million. Just what are your guys' thoughts on how long it took, but also getting the deal done in the first place?
Zach, I'll let you take this first, man.
To me, I'm just happy to have the deal over the line. I mean, we waited over a month for that deal to get done. I mean, that was just ridiculous. I remember texting Joao the day it happened, like the day Mbeumo picked United, and I was like, "Oh my God, we're moving. We're moving at the pace of a snail." I mean, come on. We didn't get the deal across the line for over a month. That was just ridiculous, and it's held us up from other transfers, from other signings, from other departures at the club. And overall, I'm just happy for it to be done.
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw the "Here we go" on my Twitter feed, it felt like Christmas morning because it was finally here. Like, so much anticipation, so much, is he going to come? Is he not going to be here? What is going on with Manchester United? Just seeing that deal finally cross the line, it gives me that relief. And I think that Manchester United, they're going to benefit a lot from this transfer. Not only that, but the Mateus Cunha can't transfer also. I think it's going to take off that sort of pressure that United has had in the mid. Not just that, I think it allows Bruno Fernandes to finally replace Manu Ugarte, who, in my opinion, he's not a bad player. I'm not going to say that he is horrible as an individual, but at Paris he held Ligue 1's highest pressure rate and pressure sort of success rates. But that was because of also who he had there in the middle with him. He had Vitinha and he had Joao Neves, two of the best midfielders in the world, in my opinion. And that allowed Manu to just go free and go at it. And I don't know, it's just Manchester United's midfield has been so weird. Because Bruno, he's always been that engine. He's always been back and forth. But last season, he was a little bit inconsistent because of those red cards, because of moments where he wouldn't show up. And then, obviously, with injuries too. Kobe being out, I just think that this is finally good because Manchester United can start getting situated a little bit in that mid, which is really what they need.
I mean, on to the Bruno Fernandes point, though. How much of it do you think is because he really doesn't fit into the Ruben Amorim 3-4-3 style of play? I've seen a lot of conversation on that on Twitter. He's playing much more of an 8 role. I know he wears the 8, but he's really, in his best moments in the United shirt, he's been playing as a 10. And having him sit deeper and be playing as his ball carrier type, to me, that's not the best utilization of him.
I don't know. It's just there's so much speed. There's so much more to this United side last season, I think. Even though it's only 2 pieces, I think they're 2 critical pieces. I think Mbeumo is going to provide that speed wherever he decides to play. He's very versatile. And not just that, I think that if Cunha and Fernandes can sort of link up in the middle, they can sort of communicate a little more. I think we can see a lot of good passing down the middle and possibly a different approach. Because last season, as we saw, the approach was really right down the wings. It's Ahmad running down the wing. It was Garnacho running down the wing, and then it was strikers trying to open up space. If not, it was a striker running down the wing, and then the winger sort of cutting in to try to open up the space. It's weird. I'm trying to explain it the best I can, but I think this allows for a different approach, and I think it allows for United's attack to be more unpredictable, which is something that they really needed last season.
I agree, and I think it will allow us to create more opportunities and overall flow better in transition. And I think this will open up a lot of opportunities for the whole squad. I'm just curious, Joao, what is your opinion on the striker situation?
Look, if I have to sit through another season of Rasmus Højlund, which apparently it's not going to happen, he is going to be attempted to be discarded from the squad before the transfer window ends. I will pull my hair out and I will possibly be bald by that midpoint season. But I think right now it's just going to have to be rely on the academy, do whatever you can, and really, I don't want to say this because it's going to sound egregious, but Cheeto's going to have to try to take a step. He's going to have to try to make that step up. If not, Cunha is going to have to try to be utilized as a striker. If not, Mbeumo is going to have to try to adapt there in the squad a little. But you can't put all that pressure on an academy kid. That's what I'm saying. You know, it's egregious what I'm saying. But he's going to have to take a little leap. If not, some players are going to have to adapt. They're going to try to have to fit in there. It's just that position it's going to be very difficult to fill in, obviously.
So you don't got anybody in the transfer market you're particularly eyeing right now?
It's because, look, right now, reports are saying, at least from Fabrizio, is that United has already spent enough money on Mbeumo and on Cunha that Isak is not looking like it's something possible. And I don't know where United is going to pull a low cost, high benefit striker right now, to be quite honest. Like, I just don't know. It's very difficult, and they don't have a lot of money to play with. It's starting to become more and more frequent that that's not a decision for United.
I mean, personally, I don't know about the price, but I do really like the idea of buying low on Ollie Watkins, even though that seems like it's kind of unlikely that Villa don't really want to sell him. Another name which I've loved all transfer window is Jean-Philippe Mateta, but I kind of doubt I have doubts that Palace sell him, and I think the price might be ridiculous there if he does get sold.
I mean, I'd agree with both those two shouts you just had. With Watkins, with both of them, really, you're getting proven players, which is following the Manchester United transfer ethos of this window. They've, with Cunha, with Embuemo, both those guys have proven themselves in the Premier League. With Watkins, the thing is with him, and which was my concern when Arsenal were targeting him too, was you're going to buy him in a few years from now. He's likely going to not play at the same level he is now. It will be a very short-term transfer, and then you're in the same predicament you were 3 years ago, just out 3 years further down the line. That's really why I think Ollie Watkins will play out the rest of his Premier League career prime years with Aston Villa, just because I think a lot of the big clubs that would fit his level don't want to take that risk, because 3-4 years down the line they'll be facing that same problem.
Which even
Now
then,
go ahead.
I like both of those shouts. I think it's too expensive. Now, United has some assets they can play with. They have some players they're trying to move, they're trying to, offload. It's just the probability of them going, I don't see it too high, and that's why I'm sort of defending my take a little, because I know I got a little bit of a smirk from one of the co-hosts, but it's just my honest opinion and the way I see things.
I mean, I agree with you. To me, that's been the most disappointing part about this transfer window is the lack of departures. I mean, obviously, we've got Rashford going, which we'll talk about. But guys like Garnacho and Antony are still around this squad. Onana is still around this squad. I don't get it. I wish we could move on from some of these guys, cut dead weight.
I mean, on Rashford, him going to Barca, though, is a really good move for him, because I think that is going to be a spot where he is going to be able to rejuvenate his career even farther than what we saw with Aston Villa. I mean, that second leg against PSG with Villa, he was unstoppable. He looked like Marcus Rashford again, which we haven't seen in a couple of years. That level of player that we know's in there was finally unleashed, and then Unai Emery subbed him out of the game for seemingly no reason at all, which is probably the single-handedly most puzzling substitution from last season, just because if he had stayed on the pitch, not only would he have continued to deliver, Aston Villa would have likely been able to knock PSG out of the Champions League. And then who wins the Champions League from that point on? It just made no sense, but it's good to see him get a chance at Barca. He's a big club player. Good to see him there. Speaking about another big club, we'll talk about Liverpool and their transfers. I have some very hot takes about them and their transfer approach, which is just spend money at this point. We'll start with the first signing, the biggest signing, £100 million plus add-ons, which could rise the deal to £116 million for the German international Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen. It is a ton of money. Florian Wirtz is absolutely worth every penny of this, and this is not the transfer that I have an issue with. He's such a quality player. The rumors of him coming to the Premier League have been around pretty much ever since he burst on the scene. I'm just glad he didn't end up at Bayern Munich like most of those German stars in the Bundesliga end up like.
I mean, personally, I would have rather seen him go to Bayern than Liverpool. Obviously, I love the fit with Liverpool. I love the talent. The money's kind of ridiculous, but you got to pay that to get a premier player at a premier position at his age. I mean, that's just always how it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying what, $100 million for a day one starter for one of the best young players in the world. I mean, in today's market, it makes total sense, and I mean, it's it's a little bit infuriating if you're a fan of if you're a rival fan of Liverpool, but I mean, it's good business. It's good business, and it's been sort of smart what they've done. And I feel like this is one of those transfers where they finally step out of that little shell and they say, okay, let's splash some cash on somebody. Because obviously, Van Dijk was smart business. Salah was smart business. And I don't know, this Liverpool transfer window has been a little bit more of a traditional, like Ed Woodward sort of United window. Just big names, a lot of money. That's what I'm seeing. But Florian Wirtz is still a smart buy regardless of the price.
And then the next two purchases of note were Jeremy Frimpong for £29.5 million, another signing from Bayer Leverkusen, and then Milos Kerkez, £40 million for Bournemouth. Two fullbacks, Frimpong a right back, Kerkez a left back. This is where my issues with this Liverpool transfer window stem from, because Frimpong as a right back is a right winger. When Leverkusen rather has possession with Frimpong, he is way high up on the pitch. He is basically occupying the same spaces that Mo Salah would. Now, I know that was kind of a similar, not to this extent, argument that Liverpool fans and Premier League fans had about Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's left for Real Madrid. And he had one of his best defensive seasons under Arne Slot. But with this player, it doesn't make sense to me because he does not have the defensive attributes that Trent displayed. It's just, I don't understand why Liverpool would make that signing.
And that's why I say, again, it's sort of a Manchester United under Ed Woodward sort of transfer window, because it's a recognizable name. Like if you watch footy, if you watch Bundesliga, you obviously know who Frimpong is. And you've seen the effect he's had on that Leverkusen side, and you say, wow, he's a phenomenal player. But you don't really look into depth and say, oh, well, I think he can fit Liverpool's system in sort of this way. It's just, it's the first slip up really Liverpool has had in a long time, like transfer wise.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of y'all on this one. I don't really understand the fit. I mean, the talent's obviously there, but inside Arne Slot's system, I just don't understand where Frimpong exactly fits.
And that's honestly the same issue I have with Gyökeres. Not to the same extent at all either, but Gyökeres is not a traditional fullback. He likes to move inside, move up. And with the center backs that Liverpool has, Ibrahim Konate and Virgil van Dijk, they're two elite center backs, two of the best in the Premier League, but they need a good six in front of them if you're going to play with these two fullbacks that like to move either wide or inside. They don't have that. It's Alexi McAllister, who can play all over the midfield. Then they got Ryan Gravenberch, who I'm not trusting as a six there. You do have Wataru Endo, who's 32. I'm not trusting him playing as the six. It is a very crowded midfield, but without a six. They've got Dominic Szoboszlai, who, depending on who you support, you've got a different opinion of. But I don't know where all these midfielders can fit together to create one that is defensively sound. Going forward, there are going to be few teams better than Liverpool this season because of this midfield, because of how progressive and aggressive they will be. I think only Man City will be able to top them. But defensively, this provides me with so many worries for how Liverpool will look at home.
For sure, and I mean, it's sort of, asking two questions. Will Liverpool change their style of play? Will we see a different Liverpool in sort of, tactically, and will Slot try something differently, trying to defend the Premier League this season? And then number two, it's just the question that Rees just asked. It's who do you replace? Who do you put? Where do you put where? But I think that's why preseason is a great time to, try to tweak those pieces. Try to see, okay, well, if this didn't work this game against, this top opponent, let's try again, So I think it's the perfect time for them to experiment, but they're running out of time. They have to come up with something soon, and even then, Premier League play is so much different. You can get really an unexpected result any day of the week.
Yeah, no, and I think their most interesting signing this window has been by far Hugo Ekitike. I think there's been so many different opinions on this. I mean, I loved Ekitike as a prospect. I liked him at PSG. I liked him at Frankfurt, and I would have loved him at United. but I don't necessarily know how he fits with Liverpool. I think it's a big boom or bust transfer to me.
I think it's a big boom or doom transfer for me. I do think that it is. I mean, you do mention the potential there. He's obviously a very talented player. A lot of people call him the next Thierry Henry. I don't see it, but I do see the potential and the quality that he has on the ball. My thing is when I listed out kind of the guys that Arsenal or United or really any big club will target for a striker position, I thought Ekitike was going to be up there for 99.9% of teams, but I don't think he is ready for Premier League play at this moment. I think he is a year away, which is not going to happen. You know, he is not going to be given the benefit of a year away because of how soon this transfer's gone through. I would have liked to have seen him stay another year at Frankfurt and develop for one more year and then make his big money move next summer.
No, yeah, it totally makes sense, and it's the same problem that United has had with their players. And I know I tie back to United so much, but it's just you're spending so much money on a young player, or you're spending so much money on a player who has had flashes, and it's just the English media does not forgive, and they do not forget either. They're not gonna forget that price tag. They're not gonna forgive, and the fans are unforgiving also. If you're not gonna perform, they are gonna be all over you, and it's just as Rees said, I don't think he's ready, and it's just 69 million. Also, yes, he's young, yes, he's talented, yes, he has a very big upside, but it's a very risky investment.
The circumstances of the transfer were also very interesting to me as well. It's just how soon they went out and bought him. We know they've been in love with Alexander Isak this entire window for years before as well. But all of a sudden he's available, and they just bought Ekiteke. I don't understand the thought process from either side there.
I mean, I completely agree. The Isak saga, I guess we'll call it at this point, is quite fascinating. We'll get into that later. But first, let's switch gears and talk about Man City. After a down year last year, they've had a very interesting transfer window to this point. They just today secured the transfer for $27 million for goalkeeper James Trafford, kind of furthering the rumors that Ederson is likely to leave this summer or at some point in the near future. I do think James Trafford is a quality goalkeeper, and I'm glad to see he's left Burnley, because I don't know if either of you watched any Burnley matches last year, but Scott Parker played one of the most boring brands of football, and they got promoted. I think they only conceded like 20-odd goals the whole year. But James Trafford was an incredible goalkeeper in these times. He saved multiple penalties, big saves. This is a good signing. He's a England youth international and really is probably the next England number one.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement of him being the next number one. He's young. I mean, it's just I don't know. If Ederson stays, I think it'd be good for him to learn and develop. It's just I don't know about just throwing him into the pond like that. Just already, it's very difficult. It's very tough to tell, if Trafford will have that same effect with City, if he'll still have that same clutch factor, was a term I was trying to come up with.
Yeah, I'm not going to go around preaching that I watched every Burnley match, but I watched quite a few of them, and in every match that I saw, Trafford was always a highlight. They were always low-scoring matches, and Trafford was always at the forefront of that push from Burnley.
Yeah, a lot of 1-0s in there. Very boring football. But City have made some much more exciting transfers. The main one really is the 21-year-old right winger, number 10, depending on how you view him, Ryan Cherki from Olympique Lyon in France. There were a lot of rumors around Cherki because of attitude problems. Who knows if that's really the case? I guess we'll see now that he's on the biggest club route potentially, depending on who you ask, and going to play in the biggest stage. That is not arguable there. He's very creative, very gifted technically, and the versatility just adds so much to this City attack, who we've seen them grow more and more versatile, and they need more creativity after losing Kevin De Bruyne earlier this summer.
Well, look, I'm not going to lie. I'm scared with this transfer Turkey, he's gonna want it back in blood with United after what happened in the Europa League last year, and especially with all the taunting, especially with everything. I am terrified for the City United fixture whenever it'll be, because I just he's a scary man. He's a scary man. It's not the best Man City team, obviously, but he's gonna change that team like he did at Lyon. He's a game changer, and I mean, 30 million for him. I think it's a great price tag, and I think that if there are really attitude problems, we'll see him immediately, because Pep isn't a I'll deal with it type of guy. If you don't want to be there, you don't want to be there, and you are gone, just like Joao Cancelo.
I mean, I love this transfer. The price tag is just ridiculous to me. I don't understand how City are consistently able to get these sort of bargain bin deals for top end talent, but they keep doing it, and it's just a great transfer. That's the bottom line. It's a great deal.
They also went out and bought Ryan Aït-Nouri from Wolves, who is a target for the club across way in Manchester. Didn't go their way. Same price tag as Cherokee, 30 million. I'm intrigued to hear what your guys' thoughts are on Aït-Nouri going to City rather than United, because to me, with United playing a back three, it feels like he slots into that left wing back role a lot better than a team playing a back four.
And it's just I had mentioned it before. I remember texting you guys and saying, hey, I think he'd be great for United, because he sort of played that position a little more at Wolves. He's experimented it a little more, and I mean, having somebody prem proven and having somebody who necessarily wasn't on the high side of transfers. I mean, I thought he was going to be perfect. Obviously, it stung a little being a United fan, but what can you do, right? I mean, it's great business from City, and I think he's going to be very useful, and he's going to be very versatile in that defense.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. This transfer stung a little bit, especially seeing the price tag that they got him for. 30 million is just an absolute bargain. I mean, we paid quite a bit more for someone who is less prim proven in Patrick Dorgu. Which, not to say that I don't believe in Dorgu, I absolutely do, but I would have much rather preferred signing Ryan Aït-Nouri for the price tag.
I mean, I completely agree with that. I do think Dorgu's potential is really why that deal was done and why the price tag is the same. But again, with the worries that people have around Man United and Amorim in charge, spending that transfer fee on Dorgu could age terribly in just a few months. Now, the next thing we'll talk about on City is defensively. They have a lot of worries, in my opinion. Just watching them in the Club World Cup, watching how they crashed out against Al Hilal, their game against Juventus too. I know they won that 5-2, but they surrendered a lot of chances, and really their back line is very thin. Yes, they've brought in Abdulkadir Kushanov last year. They've brought in Vitor Rees, two very young center backs, but neither of them saw too much playing time. Kushanov, remember that game against Chelsea where he had an absolute disaster. It was an awful performance for him. It is worrying for City to be a title contender and have this poor of a defensive showing. Yes, it is only the Club World Cup, but the warning signs are there for the future.
For sure, and it's sort of like it's sort of like how you know yourself. You go on a run and your knee starts talking to you a little bit. It's the same thing with Man City. Now it's a little worrying because their center backs are not as prem proven. They're not prem proven. They are young. They have that upside, but it's just, are they going to be able to come up in those difficult moments? And this is one of those big wait and see, because if it all goes wrong defensively for City, I think that they're a top 6 club maybe, but it's just, I don't know. I have my doubts, and I can't really give my opinion right now because it's something in progress.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw injuries impact their back line all throughout last year. I mean, I feel like Nathan Ake barely played last year. No, wasn't he out for a large majority of the season? But But
He did
on
miss
top
quite
of
a few
that,
games.
they just they haven't replaced production. I mean, Stones and Diaz didn't have the greatest of years last year, and they're not replacing that production. They brought Kushyanov in, but he's very green as we've seen, and I can't believe that they haven't attacked the transfer window with more focus on their back line.
Yeah, on Nathan Ake, he only played in 18 games last season, 10 Premier League appearances. That is something where, yes, they still have Ruben Diaz. John Stones is something there, but the right back position is very weak. You really have to come up with something creative there. I mean, Rico Lewis can play there. I'm very interested to see what Pep rolls out on the first day of the season. But one of his understudies, Enzo Maresca, we'll talk about his Chelsea side because they have had quite the Chelsea window. They have spent a ton of money, and they've spent a ton more money. They have purchased Jamie Gittins for $48.5 million, Joao Pedro. They've also brought in Liam Delap, Estevao, and they're rumored to bring in Yoel Hato from Ajax and Xavi Simons from RB Leipzig. Who knows how Chelsea's going to look day one of the Premier League season, but what are our thoughts on Chelsea's moves that have been signed so far?
My initial thought is sort of like that one meme from Breaking Bad. It's like he can't keep getting away with this. I don't understand how you're pulling out so much money, not breaking FFP. There's just I don't know. I'm very confused with this Chelsea side, and it's just you've signed so many players across the years. It's like what's your plan? What are you gonna do with all these players?
To me, it's just the amount of players they keep bringing in, and the fact that they're not selling as many. I mean, we saw them part ways with Madueke, and they're rumored to part with Nicholas Jackson as well. But it's just there's too much incoming, and there's not enough going out. I don't understand it.
I mean, that is completely obvious to me that Nico Jackson has to leave. I mean, from the start of the Club World Cup, he was the starting striker. By the end of it, he was the third string striker because they had brought in Joao Pedro from Brighton. They had brought in Liam Delap from Ipswich, both of which I think are very good transfers. I'm not the highest on both of them as quality championship or Premier League winning strikers, but Delap, that is a great bit of business. I think he's got so much potential. He's only 22. Joao Pedro really hasn't had a great squad like what Chelsea's got on the wings to surround them with. The one signing that intrigues me so much with this Chelsea team is Jamie Gittins from Dortmund. There were a lot of rumors of him coming to the Premier League. It seemed like it was going to be a London club, any of which could have been. I don't know if he's a player who is going to have that much success at Chelsea. I worry about him. I think he takes a couple too many touches. He's not that great creating his own shots. And because of that, I worry about how he'll settle in with Chelsea, and if he doesn't settle in with Chelsea, what's the consequences of that? Not only for him, but for the whole squad.
Yeah, I mean you're getting Giddens and you're relying on him to make a big impact day one. You've spent quite amount of money on him, and it's just I don't know. It's gonna be another wait and see for me. I know I've said it so many times today, but it's just Chelsea has so many pieces in play, and it's just Delap also. He's been great, and those initial games of the Club World Cup where he did end up playing, he had a lot of good runs down the wing and was lethal in creating opportunities. So it's just I don't know what their plan is. I don't know how they're gonna try to fit him in the puzzle. And really, I'm going to see more of Chelsea's preseason matches to be able to tell you in a couple weeks, hey, I think Giddens will be able to fit this way or that way. But right now, it's just once again, it's a waiting game, really.
I agree with that. And I hope that Chelsea and other Prim fans give Gittins time. I think right now he's going to be incredibly green in the Prim. But I hope to give him time to develop because I do think he could be really special in that system.
I agree there's potential there because that's the only reason Chelsea would sign him. To me, it's not a win now signing. If Chelsea had made this move a couple years ago when they were trying to kind of rebuild the squad, it would be one that would work then. But because of where Chelsea is now, winning the Club World Cup, winning the Conference League, they really need to finish top 4 this year at the very minimum. That's not a signing that you need to make, that you go out and make when you need top 4. Looking elsewhere in the Premier League, we do have a couple of non-Big Six clubs. I know we skipped Tottenham, but who cares about Tottenham? Not me. Start with the Alexander Isak saga. We alluded to it earlier in the show. What on earth is going on there? Because he's seemingly demanding out of Newcastle, but any Premier League side, pretty much any side in the world that would be able to afford Alexander Isak has already signed a striker.
Yeah, I mean, once again, we mentioned Manchester United. Honestly, in my mind, being realistic, I've discarded that option. Yes, it hurts because there's no prolific option right now in the club, but it's just there's no way that, you know, Newcastle is going to be like, oh yeah, we'll take on a Garnacho swap plus a feasible amount of money that United could pay. It's just I don't know. And even then, let's see, Barcelona, they have Lewa. He's an older Lewa. Madrid has Mbappe. I'm trying to think of big clubs right now who would need a striker, but really, there's
you could
no
maybe argue
availability.
PSG. You could maybe argue that just because they're playing Dembele as the 9. But I mean, watching that Champions League final, the main reason they won that is because Dembele played as the 9 and was pressing Jan Sommer, was pressing Inter's back line, and they were given no room. They were suffocated for 90 minutes, and that's why they lost the final like they did. I don't really see a fit. I mean, I've seen tweets and rumors that his wage demands are north of £300,000 a week, which to me sounds like he wants to go to Saudi. To me, that's what he's signaling. He wants to go to Saudi just to get a payday. But for Newcastle's perspective, it's quite unfortunate that he's doing it now because Hugo Ekitike would have been the perfect signing to replace Alexander Isak. That's why Liverpool pivoted from Isak to him, because they are not identical players, but they are very close into what they can offer in the final third, just the creativity as well as the finishing ability. And it's just, for Newcastle, they're kind of getting screwed over here.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
and I don't understand the timing of this. Sorry, Joao. I'm sorry, but
You're okay, you're okay, go ahead.
I can't wrap my head around the timing of this. I mean, I always thought Isak was going to leave Newcastle either this transfer window or the next transfer window, but waiting for Liverpool, you know, the squad who is primarily targeting you, to sign a striker, waiting for Arsenal, who's primarily targeting you, to sign a striker. Why now? Why are you taking this stand now? I don't understand it.
It makes zero sense whatsoever.
And it's just, I think it's something that's been constant with this Newcastle, you know, sort of, what do you want to call it? Front office, management, whatever you want to call it. I said front office because it's common here in American sports, but I just think that's been the problem with Newcastle. They haven't taken action when they needed to, and even then it's been I don't know, it's been buys out of the blue. And if you want to build a good squad, it's you need definite pieces. You need sort of a system. And I think it's just a mismanagement once again.
I mean, that is the perfect point there, Joao, is that Newcastle, their management has done such a poor job recruiting players for the amount of money that the Saudis have brought in to Newcastle. You think they would be able to buy pretty much any player in the world. When they first took over, that was kind of the expectation, that they were going to end up with Mbappe. They were going to end up with all the stars playing in Newcastle because of the takeover. Now it's anything but. Yes, they're consistently competing, but they are not recruiting the high-end talent that many expected.
I mean, to me, it comes down to the pull of Newcastle. I just wonder if how good that recruitment's done. You know, do players really want to play it? I know Joao loves it, but Do players
I
really
knew that
want to
was
play
coming.
at
I
St.
knew that
James
was
Park?
coming. The
players
beautiful,
really
the ever
wanna play it?
beautiful.
Do players really want to play at St. James Park? I think it comes down to that in some rate, in some way. I mean, we saw with Embuemo earlier in the window turning down Newcastle for United. Now Isak doesn't want to go there, doesn't want to stay in Newcastle. Ekitike chose favor Liverpool over Newcastle. I mean,
Let me keep my composure here real quick. But I wanted to mention the mismanagement of Newcastle and Saudi. Is this a precautionary tale for any clubs to, are possibly going to be bought out by Saudi? Is this something that's going to be common? I know PSG had it initially. They didn't have a definite system and they just bought out of the blue, but it's finally working out for them. Like what's the thought process here?
The issue with PSG, though, wasn't that they couldn't buy players. It was that they were buying the wrong players. They were spending all this money on... It was effectively a Saudi. They were guys towards the end of their career going to play there. David Beckham played there. That was his last club. Zlatan played there. They had a lot of guys go there to pretty much get their payday and go up, finish their career. Now they've completely pivoted. We've seen with the business that they've done, bringing in guys like Joao Neves, these young stars. Yes, they're spending a pretty penny, similar amount of money, but it's going to work when you build a system and bring in these young guys. That's why PSG's working. Newcastle's issue is they can't find anybody that wants to move to Newcastle.
But I just think that the Qatari and sort of Saudi takeover of both these squads, and I mean Qatari by PSG, Saudi by Newcastle, so on and so forth. I just think that, still buying players in their sort of end of their career, it's still a form of mismanagement. I just think that money doesn't equal success, and it's something that we've seen.
I mean, I agree, but I'll raise one last question before we pivot to Sunderland's transfer window. Would you rather live in Paris, France, or Newcastle? I think everyone in the world is going to say Paris.
I'm sorry, the joke from earlier came up. Yeah, I definitely live in Paris.
Okay, I was worried you were going to say Newcastle.
Yeah.
Paris, yeah. I think everyone in the world is choosing Paris.
The coast, man. I mean, it's
the beautiful
Paris
St. James Park. I mean,
the coast of Newcastle.
The coast of
No,
Newcastle.
awful. Well, all right. Well, we'll change gears here to Newcastle's actually their biggest rival, Sunderland, promoted via the playoff last year, beating Sheffield United. They have had quite the window so far. They brought in Habib Diarra, a talented midfielder from Strasbourg, Simon Adingra from Brighton, and Enzo Lefebvre from Roma. They're also looking at Granit Xhaka from Bayer Leverkusen, though Eric Ten Hag isn't quite convinced on letting Xhaka go. This is quite the transfer window, and it shows ambition for Sunderland because over the last few years, we've seen that it is very hard for a championship team to stay in the Premier League. But if Sunderland is moving like this, I think they'll be able to stay up with relative ease.
For sure. And I mean, I think it goes back to smart buys. It's smart buys. It's players who have, in my opinion, good upside and they can sort of show their worth in the Prem, and they're not splashing cash. And I mean, if they can keep this up, they stay up this season. Hopefully, they go far in a cup or something. They continue accumulating that revenue. I mean, we can see a Sunderland that can, possibly be a mid-table team in a couple years' time. But it all depends on how the season goes, and it's very critical.
Yeah, and I love to see newly promoted sides get just an influx of cash. I love to see the owners spend money, splash cash, just give them a fighter's chance in staying up and possibly being something someday. So I think I love to see it,
I completely agree. And before we pivot to talking about football on our side of the Atlantic, let's talk about who we think will win the title this year. I know I'm quite uncertain about who that could be, so I'll leave it to you guys to start that conversation.
I think after a good amount of time, a good amount of waiting. I think Arsenal takes it this year, and I mentioned it earlier. I think that the start it's gonna be a little rocky. It's gonna be a little rocky because they're gonna try to find their way in the Premier League with the pieces that they have. But I think their improvements have been significant enough to say, hey, these guys are gonna take it all, and I'll stand by it. I think Arsenal's taking it.
To me, it depends on how Arsenal finishes out this window. I love what they've done so far, aside from the Madueke signing. But I like this Arsenal squad. As long as they could stay healthy and they sign a proper left winger, I think they could be really special. It's hard for me to pick against Liverpool, but I'm very close to saying Arsenal is my pick.
I do not have as much confidence in Arsenal as you two do. It's like you two are the Arsenal fans. I do agree with Zach's take that they need to bring in a left winger. If Arsenal gets a left winger, they will instantly become the title favorites for most people, just because they've finally filled the holes that they've had for the last couple seasons. On Liverpool, I've mentioned my worries there. I've mentioned my worries about City. I'll pick a dark horse candidate that if it all comes together this year, because I worry about those three sides and how that'll look, I'm going to go with the dark horse candidate. I'm going to say Chelsea. Now, they're not my number one pick for winning the Premier League. I want to be very clear with that. But with how the window's gone, they finally spent so much money, they almost have to win a league eventually. Excuse me, you don't spend that much money and end up without a Premier League. Now, do I think they're the best team in the Premier League? No, I think that's probably one of Arsenal, Liverpool, or City. But just for a fun shout, Chelsea. It could be their year, finally. Right, but so now let's talk about the Gold Cup. I don't really want to do this because you can see my scarf. It says USA Wales. I support the US. Joao supports Mexico. It was quite a rough Gold Cup for the USA, mainly because the squad that Mauricio Pochettino was allowed to pick, because so many players said they weren't coming, was quite frankly bad. It was a bad squad. It wasn't good at all. And it showed as the U.S. struggled and limped by the very just most painful looking limp you'll ever see into the final, where they ultimately lost. I can't remember now. Was it 2-1 to Mexico?
Yeah.
2-1 Mexico. Yeah. So, Joao, we'll start with your thoughts on winning the Gold Cup.
I mean, it should
Kings
be,
of Concacaf.
It shouldn't be anything too exciting, to be honest. When I was watching the game, and yes, it feels nice to beat the U.S. finally in a final after.
You didn't win the MLS All-Star game. That's more prestigious.
That's we'll go on to that later. But no, I think it felt good to finally get over that USA hump. Obviously, USA wasn't sporting the best squad, but I think that regardless of Mexico winning this Gold Cup, I still think it's a big failure. And let me tell you why. They brought out, the best they possibly could. They tried something differently, but I just don't. This doesn't reaffirm me that Mexico can go in next year to World Cup and say, hey, we'll go past the group stage. We'll do something differently. I think this is an average World Cup year for Mexico. It's very disappointing. It's the same old play, just different players, and that's the best way I could describe it right now, really.
If that's your thoughts after winning the Gold Cup, imagine our thoughts after losing the Gold Cup. Zach, I'll let you start.
I don't care. I'm gonna just start out. I don't care about the Gold Cup.
Holy cope!
It would have been nice. It would have been nice to win, but it's at the end of the day, I don't care. For me, it is more about the players sitting out. It is more about the players choosing not to show up a year before we host the World Cup. The biggest stage in sports is coming to the U.S. And these players, I mean, I'm all for players having rest. I'm all for players having breaks. I think the Club World Cup was kind of ridiculous with the scheduling. But the players sitting out a year before we host the World Cup is just so frustrating to me.
I do think the Gold Cup provided us with one good thing. And that's multiple guys from this Gold Cup will not be there when the World Cup starts because they showed that they cannot play for this U.S. men's national team. I won't pick out every name, but we'll pick out a couple. We'll start with Max Arfsten. He played as a left back. You know, there was the semifinal, I believe it was. No, the quarterfinal, rather, versus Costa Rica. He contributed to both the U.S.'s goals, did very well for the U.S. to help them score twice. Pretty much gave away both of Costa Rica's 2 goals. It was one of the most confusing performances I've ever seen from a fullback in my life. It was horrendous and amazing at the same time. Unfortunately, the amazingness went away over the next 2 games, and it was a rough showing. Another guy who had a rough showing, I am quite opinionated about him, Patrick Agyemang, the striker throughout the tournament. It was rough. It was quite rough. I think he scored twice, but other than that, it was rough. Would you agree, Zach?
I'd have to agree. I mean, I've seen some potential in Agyemang, whether it's in MLS or whether it's in past appearances with the U.S. men's national team. But this Gold Cup really just brought me off him fully. I don't think he should be a part of the squad going forward.
I completely agree. I don't know how he earned a £6 million transfer to Derby County. I know Derby County's not that big of a team anymore. It's not the 80s, but still, that's quite ridiculous from Derby. Diego Luna, though. He was quite good up until the final when he was tasked to play as a left back because Max Arfsten was so bad. But that was a good sign. The good thing for both the U.S. and Mexico, no matter how bad they are, they were both in the 2026 World Cup because the host nations. But the expanded format makes it really easy to qualify out of the group stage. 48 teams, 12 groups of 4, 2 best teams go through, and then the 8 third-place teams go through. So the U.S. can be bad, but they'll also have some, hopefully, worse teams in the group and be able to maybe take a point or 3 and be able to be in one of those third-place spots. Same for Mexico. But, yeah, this Gold Cup was a waste of time, wasn't it?
Honestly, I agree, and I don't know. I think, what happened on the pitch was very big and very, disappointing for the United States. But I think also what happened off the pitch, a couple of, U.S. Or ex-U.S. national team players, they spoke about the issues of players sitting out. And I just want to hear your opinions, because I know Landon Donovan, I know Tim Howard, I know Alexi Lala had a couple of stuff to say about players sitting out. But what are your guys' opinions on these ex-professionals, and sort of this situation on what's going on with the U.S. men's national team?
Let's start with Landon Donovan. Landon Donovan, in the build-up to the 2014 World Cup, Landon Donovan pretty much did not play. He did not play in any of in most of the qualifiers, if not all. I can't fully remember. I was 8 years old, but he was not included for the 2014 World Cup squad because he took the sabbatical pretty much. And then he went on a rampage begging to be included in the team and was livid with Jurgen Klinsmann. So I'm not listening to anything that guy says. Alexi Lalas, I'm also not listening to anything he says. Now, I do agree with their points, but it's the wrong messengers. Zach said earlier, we're a year from the World Cup. It is probably the biggest World Cup ever. Okay, because the United States is in this kind of soccer renaissance and has been for the last few years, where if you do a good job promoting this World Cup, you can catapult this sport into the high echelons of U.S. sporting fandom, where, quite frankly, in most of the U.S., it's either the 4th ahead of hockey and behind basketball, football, and baseball, or 5th behind the 3 I mentioned and hockey. Okay? If you have a good World Cup marketing-wise and you have the success, those 2 things come together, this World Cup could be huge. But you need to create the building blocks for that now, and they haven't done that.
So do you think this falls more on the players, or do you think this falls more on the U.S. Federation?
Both. Because I think it's such a nuanced and complicated thing. It's honestly everyone and everything.
And I don't think it's fair to just place the blame on the players because the scheduling has also screwed them over. Time and time again, they're asked to play just entire years without getting injured, and it's just I understand why they're sitting out, but at the same time, this is not the time to sit out. If you know what I mean, this is not the time or place to sit out with the World Cup coming here in a year.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like we've pretty much hit the nail on the head there, and then some. So let's pivot to talk about Major League Soccer. They've had quite a few controversies. We'll only briefly touch on one, and then we'll go more in depth on the second one. Inter Miami's Lionel Messi and Jordi Alba both suspended for their matchup against FC Cincinnati because they did not participate in the MLS All-Star game against the Liga MX All-Stars. It's a rule in MLS. You have to play in the MLS All-Star game or you get suspended. It makes sense. Messi has got this mindset recently that he's bigger than the league. Joao, I know you're the MLS guy here. What are your thoughts there?
Really, I get sitting out regular season games that might not be as important. I don't think it's fair to a fan. I don't like it, and honestly, I feel disgusted as a fan of the game every time I hear, oh, Messi sat out against Nashville or sat out against Atlanta. I just think that, you come to the league, you're promising big things to all the players. You're marketed everywhere. Your advertisements are on the halftime show in the match. I think you have to promise. I think you have to deliver. Now, I do think the banter to Messi sitting out for the All-Star game was hilarious, especially from the Mexican side. They were like, oh, Messi sat out because he's afraid of Liga MX. I found that amusing, but
he was just afraid of Ramos. That's it.
I find it very disappointing that you're promising so much and you're delivering so little, and especially for the fans, because that's who the game is for. Regardless of whatever anyone says, the game is for the fans, and you as a player, you as the owner, you have to deliver.
And I agree with you, Joao. I'm going to kind of counterpoint that by just saying that in North American sports, what All-Star game does really matter. What All-Star game does every player play their hardest in? And that's truly just none. I mean, baseball maybe, but they hardly try.
But baseball's more because you cannot half try baseball. You can half try basketball, half try football. Baseball, you have to give your all,
But I agree with this. I hate the way the league markets Messi. I think he should kind of be painted as the villain. I think that would be a great way for the league to market Messi and, use him not playing as a good thing. Use it as a marketing, And I think I think the league's just handling this terribly. And I'm glad they suspended him because I saw there were some people debating if he should be suspended, which it would absolutely be a mockery of the game if he didn't. But I agree with the decision. It should absolutely have been made.
It's just the way that MLS is trying to market itself, the way that it's trying to, show that superiority over Liga MX. It's just you can't have one of your biggest stars sitting out in one of the biggest games, and I put it, with air quotes because it's
an all-star game.
These moments are big for both leagues, and this is where they try to show, hey, I'm better than you because of this, and I'm better than you in other form. I mean, Liga MX has tried to take that sort of approach that MLS has had and bringing in older stars, and we see them all around Liga MX now, especially with Keylor Navas now at Pumas. But it's just if you're trying to market yourself as the biggest in North America, I think the biggest in arguably the world has to play.
I mean, I
agree with that. Yeah,
you can go ahead, Zach.
A random question I had. I've seen it debated everywhere on Twitter. Who is a better ambassador to MLS and to the game, Zlatan or Messi?
That is difficult because Zlatan kind of made a mockery of the MLS because when he was interviewed, he pretty much said, "You are not on the same level to me." to anybody and anyone. I mean, him and Carlos Vela were pretty much head-to-head in the MVP race. Vela ended up winning it, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Joao. And he pretty much said, you failed in Europe. Look what I did in Europe. Because he put MLS down. Messi isn't really doing that, but that's because he's not interviewing in English. I mean, I am not knocking him for that, but no, he's not. He pretty much never gets interviewed. You don't really hear Messi speak. You see Messi play, you don't hear him speak, and that's kind of been the way it is for his whole career.
And it's just, I think that, MLS and individual clubs are trying to take a different strategy with sort of promoting and having new ambassadors. I really like the approach that LAFC is taking with their sort of retired stars, you can say, in Giorgio Chiellini and Gareth Bale. They're trying to advertise them as, players who they love the league, they love to play, and it's just it's good for the league in a sense because it attracts, it attracts sort of younger fan bases who have watched Chiellini play at Juve, who have watched Gareth Bale play at
Tottenham,
at Tottenham, and at Real. But I think that more the league has to take that approach instead of relying on Messi when he's not giving those interviews, when he's not doing those things that we previously mentioned.
Yeah, I agree with all that. One more thing on MLS news. This is quite big, so we'll talk quite a bit about it. MLS is rumored and is apparently has as many as 27 of the 30 owners on board with changing their schedule. Currently, MLS plays pretty much February to November. They're looking to aligning that with the European schedule, which is August to May. There's rumored playoff changes and a lot of other things. But to me, this is such a puzzling decision by MLS to even look at that. Because from August to really January, end of February, if you include Super Bowl week, you've got the NFL or college football every weekend. And you're not going to beat that on any day, any game. It doesn't matter. I mean, Austin FC, Texas could be playing Arkansas's Pine Bluff. No one's going to care about the Austin FC game if Texas is playing this FCS school that 1,000 kids attend. No one's going to care. I just don't understand why MLS would do this one bit. Not to forget that you're going to have to pause the season during the winter because some of the winters in this country are going to be so extreme. You're going to have to take at least a month-long winter break. It is just baffling that MLS would even consider this.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it, and it's just one of those things where logistically it doesn't make sense. And it's sort of something that the MLS has gotten clowned for, their schedule and how it's different, and maybe the MLS execs are trying to fit in a little more and try to adapt more to the game and try to sort of streamline it more so US fans can be a little bit more engaged since it follows a European schedule. But it's just it doesn't make sense, and especially in a country where you're trying to break in, as you obviously mentioned. And right now, the difficulties that you're having with the national team, it doesn't line up. Now, talking about the playoff format, I hope this playoff format changes. I hate the best of series.
It's so bad. It's so bad. It's just terrible.
You can Americanize some things, I think, about footy. I think the scheduling wasn't bad at all. But you can't add the best of series. The players already play enough. And not just that, I think that you get more excitement, you get more emotion, you get more passion, you get more of the emotions that the game has to offer in a single elimination match, and not this best of three where we can both draw this first match and then we'll try to take the other two. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for me, I for the life of me, I can't wrap my head around the MLS's scheduling. I don't understand this. It feels like they're just trying to shoot themselves in the foot at this point with it, because I think you have something that's different. You're playing in the summer. You're playing when other teams in Europe aren't playing. You should try to capitalize on that. You should try to get global viewers to come in. You're just competing with baseball realistically in the U.S. during that time frame. So why don't you embrace that? Why don't you try to bring more fans in? I just, for the life of me, I don't understand switching to the European calendar.
Exactly. That point about only competing with baseball is what I was going to mention too. Realistically, baseball is on the downward spiral. Is it fast? No, but it is downturning like it hasn't been in the past. And when you're competing against that, you got to attack it, and I don't get why MLS is making this decision. On the other hand, you see behind me, I've got loads of Phoenix Rising merchandise. They're in the USL. The USL is looking to get Division 1 sanctioning, which already could attack MLS. If MLS makes this decision to play this winter schedule instead of the summer schedule, USL's got to be looking at that, licking their lips, hoping and praying that MLS makes this decision, because now all of a sudden the USL could be having a better TV deal because they've already got a deal with CBS, ESPN, and if they get Division 1 sanctioning, it would only grow. They've got all these resources at their feet where if MLS makes their decision to go to this winter schedule, USL will be there, and that summer soccer void will be filled just like that.
You hit it spot on. I really don't have anything else to add after that. I mean, it's an interesting prospect, obviously, for the USL, and I mean, it's sort of refreshing to see something different coming out of US soccer, because I think MLS, in my opinion, it got old really fast. I still watch because I have my boyhood club. I have all these factors that.
Your boyhood club was founded in 2017.
Yes, but for me, it was.
I know.
When I was growing up and sort of soaking in all these emotions of footy, but it's just, I think that if the USL, once again, as you said, takes advantage of this, maybe tries to add some big names in the mix, I don't know how they do it. I'm not going to say they're going to overtake the MLS, but they're going to provide a new spectacle that can be very enticing.
Yeah, it feels like the MLS just kind of opened up a lane, just a huge, wide open lane for the USL to pass the MLS. I mean, it seems too easy, you know. If the USL makes the right decisions, that's exactly what I was thinking about. I'm not gonna lie, but it just seems so perfect for the USL, and I hope they don't fumble this because that'd be great for the league.
Now, knowing the USL, they probably will. So check back next time to see if they do. But I think that's going to wrap things up here on the inaugural episode of the Inverted Microphone podcast. No longer the It's Crocking Home podcast. Rest in peace, that name. I'm Rees Goodall. You can follow me on Twitter at Rees11_. Joao, Lara, where can they follow you on Twitter?
At Joao Reports.
Zach Dworaczyk, where can they follow you on Twitter?
At Zach_Dworaczyk on Twitter.
Thank you, Zach. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and give us a 5-star review wherever you can find your podcast. Bye-bye now.